Hey, St. John family. Coming to talk to you today about a pretty new and significant change in the diocese that's going to be taking place over the next few years. But this is that we are moving across the diocese by decree of Bishop Bill to what we call restored order of the sacraments. What does that mean? Originally, the sacraments went in a particular order, the first three, which we have always maintained. Calling the sacraments of initiation. So baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, these three sacraments comprise the sacraments of initiation. For centuries, really the order was baptism, then confirmation, and then the Most Holy Eucharist or First Holy Communion. Over time, and there's kind of a history there that quite frankly, I'm not even super well versed on. I remember studying this in seminary and I remember it was kind of vague, like how this happened. It sort of seemed like an accident of history and really just practicality. As the bishop has always been the main administrator of the sacrament of confirmation, it got more difficult for him getting around his diocese to minister the sacrament to people, and somehow the sacrament of confirmation ended up kind of getting behind the sacrament of the Eucharist. Again, I can't even explain the history there, exactly how all this happened, but it's sort of, in my knowledge, it just kind of happened. It just kind of came to be, and then it sort of became the norm. But it was never meant to be after Most Holy Eucharist. Confirmation has always been a preparation, a more immediate preparation for the sacrament of the Eucharist. And we think about it, the sacrament of the Eucharist, I mean, this is the sacrament of sacraments. We call it the Blessed Sacrament because it is Jesus himself coming to us in the transformed bread and wine, no longer bread and wine, but his very body and blood. So in many ways, the sacrament of the Eucharist is the crown of the sacraments of initiation. Even in our current contemporary practice, that order has been maintained through the rites of Christian initiation of adults. RCIA, or now as we call it, the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults, OCIA. That has always been the order. Adults coming into the church, if they had not been baptized or first baptized, then they are confirmed and then they receive the sacrament of Holy Eucharist, and that typically all within one Mass. For those who have already been baptized in another denomination, they are received into the church, confirmed, and then they receive Holy Eucharist. So the order, we could see, was always maintained in some parts of the church. But the whole thing with confirmation coming after Eucharist and it turning into this kind of coming of age, graduation type of thing it's never been a part of the theology of the sacrament. It's never really meant to be. What is the theology of the sacrament of confirmation? Essentially, it calls us back to the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit was poured out on the apostles in the upper room. At this point, after the resurrection of Jesus and his ascension, the apostles knew that something was coming, but they didn't know what, and they were more or less living in a bit of fear and trepidation, anxiety. They didn't know what was to come. You know, their master had died and risen, which was awesome, but then they saw him ascend into heaven. He's kind of gone. And what are they to do? And these are, you remember, fishermen and people of other kind of professional backgrounds, tax collector, on and on. Ministers of God, people ready to proclaim the gospel? Not yet. But when the Holy Spirit comes, their life is totally transformed. And they become these men who are on fire with the Lord and immediately go out and begin preaching the good news. They're emboldened to live these lives of faith and to spread the gospel. And this is what the sacrament of confirmation is. It's a sealing of the Holy Spirit with the gifts of the Holy Spirit to enable us to more confidently live out our baptismal call to be little Christs, truly Christians in this world, to live our faith without fear, to bring the good news to everybody that we meet. And it really helps us to endure the world as it is today and all the problems that we have. Just the extra grace that is there with the gifts of the Holy Spirit helps us to counter sort of the threats of the world, the threats against our faith, against our holiness, right? The sacrament of confirmation strengthens us in this way. And so giving these graces earlier in life just seems like a a good thing, right? The earlier we are able to receive these graces, the more we're able to live out of them. And as we give them to younger ages, not only is a good preparation for receiving the fullness of the Lord in the Eucharist, but also to help young people live their baptismal calls more fully before they get into, middle school, before they get into high school, when all these pressures will start coming on them. They'll be able to they just have greater strength with the sacrament of confirmation and the graces that come from that to withstand the pressures of this world. So this is a very, 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 very brief and kind of surface level overview of the sacrament confirmation and the reasons why we're sort of moving to this restored order. But this is a decree of Bishop Bill. Over the next few years, we're going to slowly move into this. So this upcoming year, our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are going to be prepped for the sacrament confirmation. The following year, it'll be our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. And then the following year will be our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. I think I'm getting that right. And then we're going to kind of catch everybody up to the year 2028. And then from the year 2028 and on, it's really going to be our 2nd graders preparing for First Holy Communion. We'll also be preparing for confirmation, and we'll be receiving those sacraments closely together. So this is a big move. It's happening slowly around the world. Other dioceses, especially in the UK, started doing this several years ago. Other dioceses in the United States have been slowly moving in this direction. So the Diocese of Pensacola Tallahassee, and with Bishop Bill, we're kind of a little bit on a cutting edge here. But I think over the next few years, we'll see more and more dioceses moving to this restored order of the sacraments. So a lot more to come on this. We wanted to go ahead and get this video out there, as we'll be talking about it soon. And hopefully this wasn't too confusing. But again, we'll continue to share more as time goes on. God bless you. As always, pray for me. Know that I'm praying for you.